Hello and welcome to TankAtak. I don't know why I do that because there's no fade for it, it just comes up and appears on the screen. Before we start, I keep forgetting to mention this in every single video I do. I put the start of the project in the description below. Please follow the links on there. There's tons of other links on there as well. There's like 4 links on there. One's at the start of the project, one's at the end of the project. So today we are going to be dealing with the game over condition for our tanks. So when the player reaches, one player reaches 0, they're dead. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Nothing more, nothing less. Oh, well, sorry. There is one more thing. We're going to do the end screen, a sort of very basic end screen, but an end screen nonetheless. So without further ado, let's start coding. And of course, all that begins after the fade. So here's our scene here. We have our player, our left-hand player, and we have our right-hand player. And so we're going to have some connection between the two of them. So we need to have a game controller. So the game controller is going to have the logic that controls the flow of the game. So it's going to keep track who's winning, who's losing, that kind of thing. So each player, you notice down here in the player stats, the player has 3 lives. So one of the things that it's going to take into consideration is the number of lives the player's got, and when a player reaches lives equals 0, we're going to end that round. So remember, we're not adding any fancy effects just now, we're just getting the mechanics of the game sorted out. So go over here and we're going to create an empty game object, and we are going to call this game controller. And we give them meaningful names because we want to know what these objects do. So when we look down the list here, we can see, oh, this is the game controller, this is going to contain the logic that handles our game logic. So, I mean, you could call it game logic, you could call it, overall controller, you could call it whatever you want, but game controller for me sums up that this is going to control the game. And I want to go to my scripts here, and I'm going to create a new folder inside scripts, and I'm going to call this game. So this is where we're going to put all the scripts that we're going to associate with the game. So our the sort of storage of the high score, the actual game controller we're about to create, the front end screen, all that kind of stuff. The stuff that doesn't involve players. All the stuff that involves players goes inside tanks. So you see we have our fire weapon and our move tank inside there. Inside our game, we're going to add a new one, and it is going to be called game controller. So here we have our game controller. And you see that Unity creates this base sort of line script for us. So if we click on our game controller game object, and right now it's set at this position here, let's move that to 0, 0, 0, just to sort of zero it out. It doesn't really matter, it's going to end up over here because that's where the terrain starts. We're going to add a component now. For those of you who are new to it, you should be okay with this, but just to sort of reiterate, add component just means add something that we're going to attach to the game object. So in this case, we're going to add our new script, which is called game controller. Now we can either go down here and then click on scripts, and then you see we have game controller, or we can actually type this in here. So we can do game, and you see it already finds it. So we now have our game controller there. So our game controller is now attached to this. It won't do anything, but we are going to save the scene just now. As soon as we run this, nothing's going to happen. So So when we double click on this, this is going to open Visual Studio or MonoDevelop if you're running this on Mac, and we're going to start coding. So here's our game controller. The game controller is not concerned with the number of players that we have, because we really want to make this expandable. So what if we have 2 players on the keyboard, and we have 2 players on joystick, or we have 2 joystick, or we have 4 joystick players. We can actually have any number. I mean, it's basically it's a couch multiplayer game we're building, so we could have any number of controllers on here. We're only really interested in if one of the players has died effectively. In other words, their lives is equal to 0. So for that, we really only want to keep tabs on the players that we have here. So we have a left-hand player and a right-hand player. Now each of these contains a component called moveTank, which is a class, but it's a script file based on mono behavior, but it's called moveTank. So I want to create an array of this moveTank component, and I'm just going to call it tanks. I'm going to add a tooltip as well. Array list of players in the scene. So this is the list of players in the scene. So let's say we have you build specific scenes for different types of players. So you would have a 2-player scene, a 4-player scene, 3-player scene, whatever you want. This would contain the list of the tanks in that scene. So if I go back to my game controller here, you see that it's compiled, and I now have this option here, and I have my tooltip. It says the list of players in the scene. So I can open this, and you can see that we have size of 0. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the left-hand player, and I'm going to drop it onto tanks, and I'm going to drag my right-hand player, and I'm going to drop it on top of tanks. That's all I'm going to do. And so now my left-hand player and my right-hand player are now part of this array. So I can now go back into my code here, and then I can do an update routine that checks the contents of the lives field of each of these tanks, sees if it's 0, and if it is, then we do our end of game condition. Okay, so we'll do void update, because we want to update this method here, and we can get rid of this. You see how this is kind of slightly grayed out. We're not going to be using collections here, and I'm going to use the for each statement rather than for int I and all that kind of stuff. No reason, but I just get the reference to it here, so I don't need to have the square brackets inside my logic, and it clutters things up. For each tank, I'm just going to use var this time. Again, saves a couple of things here. So if tank dot lives equals 0, and then we can find out the player who won. So it's going to be the opposite player. In this case, we have our two players here. So it's going to be the opposite player of that. So I'm just going to, well, in that case, I do need the index value of that. So, yeah. I less than tanks dot length I plus plus var tank equals tanks I. Oops. That just keeps our logic a little bit easier. Okay, so I actually need the other one there. So if tank lives equals 0, we're going to determine the winner, load the next scene, store win in player prefs, and load the next scene. Okay, so this is our logic here. We're going to determine the winner, store the winner in the player prefs, and load the next scene. So if in this case it's fairly easy because we only have 2 players, but so we're not going to worry too much about having multiple players. But if it's player 0, then the left-hand player has won because we have dragged our left-hand player. Otherwise it's the right-hand player, so it's the exact opposite of that, if you're following at home. So if the current tank has 0 lives, that means the other tank is 1. So the winner is determined by adding 1 to I and then returning the remainder of that number divided by tanks.length. So this means that if we're at tank 1, we add 1 to it, and then we return the remainder, which gives us a 0, which means it's the opposite tank. So it means that we're always getting the opposite tank there. It's a little bit of math thrown in here, but we're basically sort of flipping it. I mean, what we could do is we could say if I equals 0, tank equals, we'll just put it as 0 there. So if I equals 0, winning tank equals 1, else equals 0. So we can do it like that, okay? There's nothing wrong with us doing it that way, but it's a bit long-winded. So what we can do is we can do equals I plus 1 mod tanks.length. That does exactly the same thing, but it does it all in one line. Okay, so that's the exact same logic there, but we're doing it all in one line because of the properties of this, because this is going to return the remainder of this value. So if you think of 4 divided by 2 is 2 remainder 0, but 5 divided by 2 is 2 remainder 1. So this returns the remainder of this calculation. So in this case, if it goes to 2, then it's going to be 0, which means that we end up going back to there. So it's a good way to clamp things in there. If you don't quite understand this operator, hopefully I'll remember to put a link below, but I'll give some examples to that. So this is our winning tank here. Our winner in player prefs therefore is going to be tanks winning tank dot name. So it's going to be the name of that. So we're going to do player prefs dot set string. So we'll determine the winner, store the winner in player prefs, and then we're going to load the next scene. So the way we load the next scene is we do scene manager, and then we add our, by the way, just do a control dot there, and we want to add our using for scene management. So this adds our scene management up the top here, dot load scene, and then we're going to say this is going to be called game over. We haven't done a game over scene yet, but that's what it's going to do. So what we are going to get is we're going to get an error when we run this code because we don't have a load scene. But that's good because it means that our code would work if we had a scene here. So what do we have here? You know what, let's just for belt and braces, statement of I don't know if we need this or not, but let's just leave it out. Okay, so we want to determine our winner. So our winner is determined by whatever the current value is plus 1. So it's if this tank has 0 lives, then it's got to be the other tank that won, because we have 2 tanks, so we can't both lose. And the way we determine that is we add 1 to the current index, which is our I up here, and then we mod it with the length of the tank. So the length of tanks just now happens to be 2, so if we get to 2 then it becomes 0, so it flips around there, so it becomes the opposite one then. We're going to store our winner in player prefs. This works okay just now. We might want to change this if we're moving to like a console or something else where determining where player prefs is set, you need to check your target machine for that, but for running on a PC, we're okay for just now because it stores it in the registry on the PC, and in I'm trying to think on the Mac. On the Mac, I think it's inside the library folder inside users. I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's in there. But it involves disk access anyway for the Mac, and I think other platforms use disk access as well. And technically, the Windows does as well because it's through the registry. The registry, I'm guessing, gets loaded when you need it. Anyway, so we're going to store it inside player prefs anyway, and this is going to allow us to have. This allows us to send short messages between the scene. Don't store entire objects inside player prefs. I would wholeheartedly disagree with that. If you have a large object, you have like tons of information about the player, about what weapons they're carrying, their inventory, all that kind of stuff. Store that on disk and then load that in the next scene, or have some persistent load that sits over everything. That's for the serialization thread that I'm doing. So if it's just simple things like this one-liner here, this is fine for storing things in player prefs. Then eventually we're going to load the next scene. So this is our game controller class. There's not much to it. This is pretty much all there needs to be to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play as left player. I'm going to put the console on, and hopefully the third time I hit the player, they will cease to be. And we'll hopefully get an error message down here that says that we can't find a game over scene, which is the important part. So there you go, hit them, 2 lives left. Oh, so close. Oh, 1 lives left. And no lives left, there you go. So scene could not be loaded because it has not been added to the build settings of the asset bundle. So that's perfect. So we've done that. So let's create a new scene. And we will call this one new scene. And we will call this one. So we're going to create a new scene here, and we're going to just save it. And we're going to save it as game over. Okay, so here's our game over scene. Now notice it says cannot be loaded because it has not been added to the build settings, blah 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 blah. So if we go up to our build settings here inside the file menu, and then we just choose add open scenes, and that adds our game over to our scenes. Notice how it says game over. It's not game over.unity, it's just game over. So that's it. We just need to close that. And then for here, we're going to create a text box, a piece of text, sorry. And I'm going to move into 2D. So here is our text. I'll just make this as big as possible. We're only doing this as, just as a quick one, just to sort of finish off the controller, just to make sure that we're doing everything okay. And I'm going to make this a light color. What does the game look like? It looks like that. And I'm going to make this 28. A little bit more than that. 48. Yeah, that's good enough. And we're going to center it there, and we're going to say that's it. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to say congratulations, winner. But we do need to create a new script, so we go back down to our game here, and we will do create, and then a C# script, and we will call it game over screen. Okay, so again it creates a blank over here, and I'm going to do create empty here, and I'm going to add my game over screen here. So again, I'm just creating my game object here. So this is game, this is the scene controller. Again, we give it some meaningful name, and then we add a component, and this time I'm going to add the game over screen. And I'm going to save my scene. I'm going to save my scene, and I'm going to double click the script, and it's going to ask me to reload, and I'm going to reload. So here's my game over screen. So I want to have a reference to this text here. So I know that this is a text object because I want to put the winner in here. I want to say congratulations and then whatever the name of the player is. So I am going to get rid of this just now. Public text winner text. So right now I don't need collections either. This has got the red squiggly line on it. I just click the light bulb, and then I add my using Unity Engine UI namespace, and that adds that there. And then when this starts, yeah, sure. I want to grab this string here, so I'm going to make a copy of this. So I'm just going to highlight that, press Control C, and then I'm going to go back here, and then I'm going to do string player name equals player prefs dot get string this time, and then I'm going to specify the winner. So there's my winner text. So this string, this is a key value pair. So the idea is that you save it as a key, and then it returns a value back from that key. And now I'm going to do winner text dot text equals player name That's it. So that is our game over screen. Is we get the player name from player prefs, and we set the winner text to be congratulations. Done. Okay. So because we've already set that, if I run this scene, it should say congratulations left-hand player. And it doesn't, because my input button has not been set up. Oh yeah, okay. So this is, so I need to add a submit, and I think you need to add cancel as well, because, is it the event system? Yeah, so the over here you've got the horizontal, you get the vertical, you submit and cancel. These basically need to be inside, they need to exist. So if I go to edit, project settings, input, see I have player 1 rotate, player 1 forward, player 1 fire, player 2 da 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 da. So if I make player 1 fire the submit button, player 1 fire, and then my horizontal axis, can I leave these as blank? I wonder if I can leave these as blank. I don't really want them, to be honest. I think maybe I can leave them as blank. Okay, so now this should work. Nope, didn't like it. Input button empty is not set up. Well, there you go. So apparently we have to set these things up. Thanks, Unity. Okay, project settings, input. Let's just create dummy ones here. So we need horizontal, vertical, so we need another 4. So, okay. So we'll call this horizontal. We're not actually doing any input here, so I wonder if we need an event system at all. Well, I'm just going to put these dummy values in anyway. I think we can probably get away with it in an event system, but submit, and then finally down here I will bring this up. I'm going to change it to cancel. Okay, so there's our horizontal, vertical, submit and cancel. So hopefully it'll stop complaining now. So this is horizontal, vertical, submit, cancel. Okay. Oh, you're following this. Sorry, this isn't actually part of today's tutorial section bit thing. It's just something we've got to fix for Unity's purpose. Hopefully this will fix the issue here. Okay, well, that's good. So it doesn't like line 11. And the reason why it doesn't like line 11 is because I haven't actually set it to be none there. So if I drag this text box over onto the winner text, that now sets my reference, and we should be good to go, and it should say left-hand player. Okay, because our player was set up initially to do that. So let's make the right-hand player win this time. So if I open a scene, debug tank movement, I'm going to save that scene there. I'm going to run it. And okay, so here is our tank coming down for revenge. Whoa. Did I just knock him off the playing field? I did. Whoops. Okay, I should probably not knock him off the game field. I will move him a wee bit further over. Okay. So I'll move him over here, and then I'll move this guy down here. The fun thing about working on video games is you get to play a lot of video games to test things out. So there we go. There you go. One hit left. Now he's got one hit left. So now we should get. There we go. Right hand player. And that's us. We're done for that just now. So that's all we've got time for today, I guess. So that's there's not much code in here for our game logic. Our game logic is all it's doing is just cycling through each of the tanks. So going through each of the tanks, we create a temporary variable here so that we don't have to do tank square brackets I to access the elements of that array. We check to see if the lives is equal to 0, and if it is, we determine the winner. So we use a little bit of math here, and again, hopefully I'll remember and put links below. We store the winner's name in the player preferences, and then we load the next scene, and that's it. That's all we have there. And then in our game over scene, we grab that text, and then we set the UI component, and then we're done. Hi guys, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you next time, but until then, if you want to get timely reminders, there's somewhere around in this box somewhere there is a subscribe button. I would much appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell anyone. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down. If you want to leave a comment as to why you did like it, you didn't like it, you hate me waffling on about Unity at times, leave a comment below. There's also a description box below. The description box contains links to the start state of the project of this before the video, and then there's the end state of the video after the video. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So yeah, those links are there. But yeah, oh, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm right here. I'm at Sloan Kelly on Twitter. It's not really Unity related, it's kind of personal tweets. Just basically anything I can find to rant about in 140 characters or less. So yeah, so yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.